Arsenal take on Chelsea, and normally we're talking about two sides that are chasing for the title and the top four. We might be looking at relegation candidates on one end, and Arsenal, well, I want to talk about this badly. And Arsenal, on the other hand, should I say, we're desperate for a title, and it looks like it's not going to happen. As much as I was rooting for you on every single episode of this, can I just clarify? So the last four fixtures between these two sides have actually been pretty evenly split to an extent. Arsenal 1-0, Arsenal 4-2. That Eddie Nketiah, was that Eddie Nketiah hat-trick?
Yeah.
Chelsea 2-0, and then Arsenal 1-0. The form table has Chelsea second bottom in the league over the last 6 games. You haven't won a game since Leicester 3-1, but Arsenal are 10th in the league for form. So where does that leave you?
In the mud, to put it simply. We are not in a great place. Obviously, Frank Lampard was brought in for vibes. There's been zero vibes. And as much as I love Frank Lampard as a footballer, obviously he's one of Chelsea's greatest ever players, if not the greatest ever Chelsea player. It's just not worked, and this season's been an absolute disaster. I remember coming on here, I think it was December time, or maybe January, after the World Cup, and saying that our season's basically over. You and James tried to talk me down.
I tried, man.
Saw it from a mile off, and now we sit in the bottom half of the Premier League table, heading into May. Who would have thought, after spending close to £600 million on this squad? It's an absolute disaster class from Chelsea this season. I've never seen anything like it, and I'm bracing myself as a Chelsea fan for hard times, and we've seen it. If you look at fan culture and talk about banter eras, and Arsenal went through it, and Manchester United went through it. This is the start of Chelsea's banter era, and it is what it is. Football's cyclical. Chelsea have been so successful over the last 20 years. We've been blessed by winning every club trophy there is to win, and this is just what happens in football. And unless you have the right manager in the dugout, then you are going to struggle. Spurs are experiencing that right now. Liverpool experienced that before you had Klopp. Arsenal experienced that.
Don't try and bring all of us to your level.
Everyone's getting it today. But yeah, Chelsea are just in terrible form. It's interesting though, going into this Arsenal game, Arsenal have conceded more Premier League goals than Chelsea, which is insane. The difference is Arsenal scored 48 more goals than Chelsea, which is the reason why Arsenal where they are and Chelsea where we are. And so going into this Arsenal game on Tuesday, I don't hold out much hope. We can play the position of spoilers. We did that in the 15-16 season, Battle of the Bridge against Spurs, that classic 2-2 draw. Classic game. And we effectively stopped Spurs winning the league, even though it was done before then. And everybody expects Man City to win this Premier League title, but Arsenal are still top of the league. Chelsea can go to the Emirates and try and get a result. Last season, like you mentioned, we got a result there. Lukaku with a masterclass, one of the few good Chelsea games that he had. But I don't hold that much hope. Chelsea are in a desperate position this season, and I don't see it getting much better.
If you could get a result, it would be nice for me.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the biggest question is, are you going to stay up? Because you're still yet to hit that 40 point mark.
Stop it.
You've been on 39 points for like 2 months. Yeah. And I keep looking at it saying, have they hit it yet? And they still haven't hit it.
It's insane.
And Frank Lampard, for me, that was just a complete PR stunt. I think... When I look at, there's very few clubs that I can look at other than my own that I go, what on earth is going on there? But what on earth is going on at Chelsea? And I think, to bring him in, you're averaging, I think, less than 1 goal a game in terms of XG. And the way that Lampard's setting the team up, the other night against Brentford, you had Kante and Gallagher up front, essentially supporting Sterling when you had 6 attacking players on the bench. It just makes absolutely no sense. And I always think, obviously, it was the wrong decision to sack Thomas Tuchel. You're paying the price for it. I never thought Graham Potter was going to be the right man for the job. I think he actually would have been better suited to a club like Tottenham, where there's less pressure, you've got more time to build, put your own ideas into it. But essentially, Todd Boehly has just gone and bought a whole squad, picked up a manager and said, here you go, win me something and play well. And it just doesn't work like that over here. It doesn't work like that in the Premier League.
I think he had the Zidane project in mind, Zidane at Madrid, give him loads of good players.
To Graham Potter?
No, to Lampard, not to Graham Potter. The Potter thing was just a really bad decision. We sat here multiple times and said that was just not ever going to work. And I think he might have gone for Lampard as an interim. He might have gone for Lampard and gone, give me the Zidane effect. Go in, the players will love you, you're an icon of the club. It's gone completely opposite way. The players do not love Frank Lampard, clearly. And at the moment, you're not only not scoring, you're also conceding an awful lot of goals. In the 3 games he's been in charge, you've conceded a total of 4.6 XG, which is an average of 1.53 XG per match. Essentially, you're conceding nearly 2 goals every game. And then you don't have a 9, which we've discussed many times, so you don't score enough goals. In essence, you're in this position where Lampard is kind of just trying to get you to the end of the season in any way possible. And now that you're out of the Champions League, that now makes everything feel a lot worse. How should Chelsea be lining up between now and the end of the season? Because we're not seeing the players that you probably want to see.
Yeah, it's difficult. There is, I don't want to be so doom and gloom about it, but there is really no hope for Chelsea. We've still got to go to Old Trafford, still got to go to the Etihad, still got to go to the Emirates. We're not.
The relegation fight could be legit.
Yeah, it's just.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, like, and it's insane because there was a point last season under Thomas Tuchel when Chelsea beat Juventus where I was like, we look like the best team in the world. Like what's happened over the last season and a half has been absolutely insane, and you can't really legislate for being sanctioned. Obviously the change of ownership had a huge part to do with Chelsea's downfall this season and demise, but it's between now and the end of the season, Lampard, like I said, was brought in for vibes. The vibes are clearly not there. And you want to see some tactical fluidity, maybe some tactical changes, but I don't think it's within his wheelhouse to do that. Obviously, he was lauded in his first stint at Chelsea for bringing through Reece James and Fikayo Tomori and Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham, but that's not even there really. And those players that kind of brought the vibes in Lampard's first stint are struggling. Mason Mount could be off in the summer. Reece James is perpetually injured. Obviously, Fikayo Tomori and Tammy Abraham aren't even at the club anymore. And so Chelsea don't even have the youth kind of players to hang on to. So between now and the end of the season, I just want to win a game. Literally, I just want to win a game.
Just want the 40 points.
Yeah, I just stop it. I see the fixtures and I see Chelsea's current form, and I watched the game against Brentford, and I wasn't surprised that Chelsea lost 2-0, and nobody was. We're the third best team in West London. That's crazy. And Fulham kind of dropped off the cliff a little bit after their strong start to the season, and Chelsea are still below Fulham. It's been a disaster for Chelsea from start to finish, but like I say, the thing that I've got to hold on to is that we can have an effect in this title race. I know we've kind of written off the season in terms of the title for Arsenal, but they're still top of the league. And Man City have got to win those games in hand. We've still got to play Man City as well, so we could have a massive effect in terms of where the title goes, about the top four race as well. We've got Man United to come. But in terms of our own season, we're just waiting for the end of the season.
Let's flip to Arsenal then, because if Chelsea season's over, Arsenal season could still be alive. But they've now gone 4 games without a win.
Yeah.
They struggled against City. I personally see that game as one that you can't quantify. I don't think you can use that as your data to go forward, because City were outstanding and Arsenal got cold, to be fair. But they've got an issue going forward. Gabriel Jesus had a total of 6 shots against Southampton, accumulated an XG of 1.14, but it really should have been a lot more because he missed some absolute sitters. Didn't score, and when he was out, they had Trossard up front with Martinelli and Saka. That felt like a better front line, dare I say, than Jesus.
Yeah, I think whisper that, because Arsenal fans obviously absolutely love Gabriel Jesus.
Oh, it's changed. The narrative's changed on the internet now.
I think Trossard was a brilliant signing, and I actually said it at the time, Arsenal fans wanting Mudryk, and they were like, no, how can we go and get Trossard, and we've wanted Mudryk, and I said, I actually think Trossard is a far better fit for you than a player that is costing an arm and a leg that you've seen play for 6 months in a Ukrainian league.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really smart signing in terms of also bolstering their squad. But look, you have to look at the Man City game. You can't not and dance around that. Essentially, if you are going to win the league and you're going to go to the home of the champions, you either need to put up a fight in terms of how you're setting up and learn from the other 2 times you've played them this season and know how to win. And know how to have a game. And for me, Arsenal just went there and they just didn't bring anything. And I say disappointed, obviously not as a Tottenham fan, but I was disappointed because...
As a football fan?
As a football fan, because it was such a great spectacle, and Manchester City were absolutely beyond out of this world, and that's what they have been, for the past kind of 10 games or so. But I just expected more from Arsenal. Their front players, Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, where were you?
Hiding.
Where were you?
Hiding.
Where are you? Let's be having Dean Smith.
But also defensively, we've praised them so much this season for how astute they've been at the back, and obviously they haven't got William Saliba, but that shouldn't make that much of a difference, should it?
I think the Tomiyasu injury was the bigger one, because obviously Saliba's been incredible and he's been kind of that calming force at the back line. We've got a bit more of an aggressive defender in Gabriel, and Saliba's a bit more cerebral. But Tomiyasu can cover any position on that back line, and when he went out, that was the biggest issue, because you could shift Ben White to centre back, play Tomiyasu right back, he can play left back, he can play centre back. When he got injured, that was their biggest issue, and their lack of squad depth is probably the reason why they won't win the league this season.
I think they're probably at a point, Arteta's at a point where he's got to decide whether he continues with this 11, which for the last 4 games just hasn't worked, or he does something to switch it up. Arsenal fans wanted to see a 3 at the back. I think the best managers believe in their philosophy so much that they refuse to change. And unfortunately for Arsenal fans, I don't see him changing at this point. I think he really trusts his players, and I don't see many options at the back. I don't think you can just slot Partey in at centre-back or Partey in at right back. You can't just... It's not FIFA, you can't just stitch players in position. So my feeling would be go and get more goals. It reminds me of 13-14 Liverpool, where it was like, the other team will score 3, we'll score 6. And so I think you take on Chelsea, who you know can't defend, just try and outscore them, because they can't score either.
It's true.
It'll be a big problem if you concede against Chelsea, a number of goals against Chelsea.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, the 13-14 Liverpool comp, because obviously that's the team that nobody had challenging for the league title. You took it all the way to the last game of the season. Obviously, everyone remembers the Gerrard slip, but that's a season where you had John Flanagan playing a lot of minutes, playing a lot of games. And Arsenal, maybe their squad and team's a bit better than that 13-14 Liverpool side that were over-reliant on Luis Suarez and Gerrard scoring penalties. But it's this Arsenal team, the lack of squad depth really showed. And like you said, Mikel Arteta has a lot of faith in his players. Thomas Partey has fallen off a cliff over the last 4 games. Jorginho's a man that's performed well when he's come into the starting lineup. Mate, you wouldn't do it for the game against Man City, but maybe the Southampton game is the game that you could see Jorginho starting and see if that works and see if you can maybe switch things up. But Arteta's stubbornness, and I know a lot of people want to put it on Rob Holding. It wasn't on Rob Holding.
Well, they were actually conceding a lot of goals right after the World Cup when Sleep was completely fit.
Yeah, they were conceding so many goals, and Rob Holding gets a lot of flack because maybe he's not as good on the ball and doesn't help Arsenal retain possession as much, but he's not the issue. The issue is the tiredness of the squad. The issue is the protection in front of the back four. Thomas Partey has not been the same Thomas Partey. Jack has kind of fallen into his old traps in terms of giving the ball away.
You leave Granit Xhaka.
I love Xhaka, but like it's a position where Arsenal could improve, and you see the tiredness from Saka, and you see the tiredness from Martinelli, and Gabriel Jesus is not a person who's scoring goals at the moment. So the deficiencies are clear for Arsenal, but against the Chelsea side that are struggling for form, you don't see anything apart from an Arsenal win.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you on that, purely because of the fact that it's Chelsea. I mean, if it was anyone else that maybe had a bit more potence up front in front of goal, then I'd say, oh, maybe because they're on the ropes, Arsenal. But I also think it's to do with the mentality. I mean, I saw it when Tottenham were going for the league that season with Leicester, 16-17. And obviously, you know, Tottenham were called bottle jobs and this and that. And Arsenal are apparently not that. We'll reserve it until the end of the season to decide. But I think it's the mentality. When you've got the youngest squad, I think, is in the league, you know, these are hurdles you're going to face. And when you come up like a giant with Manchester City, you know, think about how many times they've chased down Liverpool. I'm sorry, but they have. And it's breathing down your neck. Can you handle that intensity? Can you handle that pressure when it gets to the business end of the season? You know, Arsenal have led this league the entire time, but not when it counts. And I think that's the thing that they'll either... It's a hard lesson to learn if they don't win the league this year, but it's not much different to last year. Obviously, they didn't get top 4. They lost to Tottenham in those last 3 games and Newcastle, and that effectively cost them. This year they've come back super strong, and I'll absolutely give them the credit that they deserve. They've been sensational, but it's been a long old season with the World Cup in between. It's no surprise there's burnout, and I think that Mikel Arteta will need to kind of learn in terms of managing that squad, when to move forward, how Manchester City do, when's the right time to peak. And I know Manchester City have got essentially 2 squads, and that's how they can fight on all that front, and Arsenal will have to essentially invest if they want to maintain that, because I do think Chelsea will be resurgent, whether or not you get Mauricio Pochettino or not. I still think you'll be resurgent, but I do think that this is a big old learning curve for them, and you know, it's not the end of the world. You know, if they don't win the league this year, I still think they're going to be up there and thereabouts in the next years to come. He's built a really good side, a really good squad, and you think where Arsenal were the start of last season, you know, they'd lost their first 3 games. They were calling for Arteta out. They've stuck with him the board. They've stuck with his ideologies. He plays that type of pep style football, which we all love. And I think they'll just continue to learn for it. But they definitely need to add some more mentality. And I would argue that actually putting Jorginho in gives you that bit of experience. That's a proven winner that has won the Premier League. He's won the Champions League. Like, put that in there. You know, have that little bit of grit and determination and strong mentality in the middle of the park, because at the moment they've lost their mentality.
Sounds like we've all given up on Arsenal, but what are your predictions for the Chelsea game?
I would love to sit here and predict a Chelsea win, but I can't see anything other than an Arsenal rout. I'm saying 3-0 Arsenal.
Likewise, I'd love to see a Chelsea win, but I can't see it happening. I can't even say he's going to score a goal. I'll go 2-0. I'll go 2-0 because I still think Arsenal are a little bit fragile.
I'll go... It's a London derby. Chelsea have to score. I'll go 2-1, but I don't think it's going to be a tight game. Chelsea might score on a counter late in the game. And yes, it does sound like we've all given up on Arsenal winning the league. But there's good news for you, because we are recording a video on how they can still win the league. So go and watch that as well.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.